Good evening. My name is Gene Bergman. I'm the host of Burlington Progressives TV. I'm also Ward 2 City Councilor, and I am here with three amazing people. These are two incumbent city councilors, Carter Newbeezer and Merrick Broderick, and one soon-to-be, Laura Sanchez Parkinson. I got that. Excellent. And we're here to talk about the work that they've done on the council, off the council, what they're proudest of, and what you all want to do. So we'll just get right to it. And what I'd like to do, because Merrick, you've got an NPA, a Neighborhood Planning Assembly meeting that you're going to go to, and that's where your neighborhood really sits down and talks through a lot of issues, and you've got to be there at 6:30, and it's 6:10. So you've been on the council for 2 years now. That was a great election. And I'm curious, you just start us off about the things that you're proudest about in having been elected and then serving the residents in the city of Burlington.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. And thank you to Town Meeting TV for having us on tonight. Like Gene said, my name is Merrick Broderick. I am the Ward 8 City Councilor running for re-election on Town Meeting Day. And in terms of what I'm most proud of with running, I separate into three categories. I think talking about our policy wins, specifically the policy wins that I've led on. So the two highlights of that, I think, are when we passed a resolution that you and I worked on together with Run on Climate on instituting a building decarbonization ordinance, also known as Bureau colloquially, which is a set of regulations that has been passed in places like Cambridge and Boston that would regulate the energy usage, specifically through heating systems of large buildings. So
lowering emissions.
Lowering emissions. So we passed a resolution that made that a priority for the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee, which we are both on. And we have already started step 1 or step 0, depending on who you ask, of that process, which is an energy benchmarking ordinance, which gives us, when that is completed, baselines to set our regulations on, because as we know, different types of large buildings use energy in different amounts and for different reasons, so need to be regulated in specific ways.
So you're a renter, and you've experienced the rental housing that we've got. I mean, part of this is weatherization and cold. I mean, talk about it from the standpoint of the people who are living in housing, in rental housing in Burlington, and why this is really important.
For sure. I think Burlington as a city and as a population wants to play its role in addressing the climate crisis however we can, and that includes renters who don't have the ability to just choose to live in a weatherized rental unit that is using as little energy as it needs to be and emitting as little as it needs to be. So part of what I want us to continue working on going into the next council is making sure that our rental weatherization ordinance is fully put to use and that those standards are fully implemented, because not only will that decrease emissions in our rental housing, but it will also bring down people's energy bills.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little while ago, but I remember living on North Avenue in a house and paying $300 a month. This was like a long time ago, so that was like really serious money. And then still having the pipes freeze, right, and bust. So I mean, and it was never comfortable there. So this is an important piece of what we need to do. And I interrupted you, but so what what other things are you really proud of that you've done?
Yeah, so the other policy victory that I wanted to talk about was the recently passed dorm housing resolution that, again, you and I had worked on together along with students on the UVM campus, specifically the UVM Student Tenant Union. And this was an issue that I had known about basically ever since I had gotten on the council and had heard about while I was running for for election the first time, which is the very subpar state of UVM dormitory housing, and the question of why isn't UVM addressing these problems, and where can the city step in to ensure that that process is being looked at. So I did the research. You helped me look through our book of ordinances and found out about an ordinance in our housing code about how dormitories are exempt from regular inspection as long as they certify annually that their dorms meet our housing code. And we had asked the Department of Permitting and Inspections for those certifications, and they did not exist. So that prompted a series of events that culminated in a resolution that is bringing the University of Vermont and Champlain College to our ordinance committee to diagnose the problems where, on the city side and on the university side, did our systems fail our students. And to accomplish that, it took a great amount of organizing on the outside with the UVM Student Tenant Union, bringing students out to 3 council meetings in a row to speak on the need for the city to take action on this. And for you and me, a ton of negotiating with our Democratic counterparts to get the resolution to a place that it would pass unanimously. And I'm very proud of both of those things, both the organizing on the outside and also the collaboration on the inside. Yeah. And that's just one part of what I'm proud of on the City Council. The second is bringing the movement into City Hall, in the sense that even when we lose on issues, we are making people feel heard and advocating for the issues that are important to us and important to me. I think about the litany of attempts for us and for the community to pass the apartheid-free Communities Pledge and get it on the ballot. It failing under, while I was on council, it failing twice. And it's will hopefully come up for a third time at our next council meeting, and we'll see where that goes. I think about the multiple resolutions that the Democratic caucus brought to the table that increasingly criminalize homelessness, and me taking a principled stand that our unhoused neighbors are part of our community and deserve to be treated with the same humanity as the rest of us. So advocating on issues like that, where even if we lose in the votes, we are still raising consciousness of these issues and making members of the community who feel unheard heard. And I think that also applies to the dorm housing resolution with the students, even though that ended up passing. And then the third thing that I'm most proud of is just being able to help and support my constituents. I think about, again, I think about being able to support students with the dorm housing resolution, but I also think about just being there for my constituents, whether it is helping a renter get their landlord to turn their heating up because it's winter and she's got a bad shoulder and she can't. It's frozen in there. It's definitely below 65 degrees, and being able to get her heat turned on was a great victory. And then being out in the community, and this kind of ties into the movement things as well. Being in solidarity with UVM students at the UVM Palestine Solidarity Encampment, and even myself getting hauled in front of the disciplinarian at the university. Just being able to stand with folks and support them however I can as their counselor. I'm very proud of what I've accomplished there as well.
I think you should be, and it is really a pleasure to sit next to you on the council at the table and to work with you on these things, because it gives me a great deal of joy to watch you and Carter and soon to be Laura and others living out your values and doing it in a way that's meaningful to help somebody who's hurt but who even wouldn't be hurt, who needs to navigate through a system to get their heat turned on. That's really important. I remember that probably the most important thing that I did, and I did a lot of things when I ran a long time ago in the 80s when Bernie was mayor and I was elected, was getting stop signs so that kids could get to the Boys and Girls, from the Boys and Girl Club to Roosevelt Park without getting hit by speeding cars. And I did a lot, including like the waterfront rezoning and the park down there and the community boathouse. I mean, lots of big stuff, inclusionary zoning. That was the most important thing to me, making sure that my kids, our kids, could get across the street without getting hit. And to do that in a way that organized people from the community, which is what happened. So I'm there, and it's a great pleasure. And you've got a website. I know you've got to go to the website, and there is the website right there, up there for everybody to see. So it is what, Merrick, what's the address?
MarrickBTV.com, MarekBTV.com.
And we got this, I Googled you, and all you have to do is Merrick Broderick, and it pops right up. So that's really great. Well, I'm not going to release you yet because you have a couple of more minutes here, but I want to turn to Laura and say hi, welcome. This is your first run at elective office. It's not necessarily your first time around electoral politics, I understand, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say, Merrick, you inspire me so much to think about just having you and having sort of like the diversity within our table across generations. I think to have someone who is so connected to the campus in a city that is so importantly and connected to the university, I think that we're very lucky to have that perspective on our city council. So thank you. So yes, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be in this journey. And I remember when I made the decision, I said to my partner, I want to do this and I want to have fun with it. And part of that, it's not because the work necessarily is fun. A lot of it it's challenging. But I think that to be able to work together, to collaborate together, to learn together, so that we can create better communities for our families, for our neighbors, we need to be able to enjoy some of that process. Absolutely. And so I'll share a little bit about myself. I know that, so I live in Ward 3 in Old North End with my partner and my 2 children. They go to Sustainability Academy. And really, I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to step up and run is because I quickly began to think about what type of city I want my children to grow in. I think that when you have children, you begin to have that perspective.
Yep. I raised mine too here. Yeah.
And part of it is like not only for my own, but for those around us, for other children, but for other individuals who are in our community. And I see opportunities. I see opportunities to think about creatively about the ways that we can improve not only policies, but also just our environment and how we live and how we interact with each other. Much of my background is thinking a lot about how do we change cultures, behaviors, attitudes. I've been across sectors. I'm very interested to think about how do we change systems across sectors. I've been in the nonprofit sector, philanthropic sector, and higher education. And I think that across these sectors, I think quite a bit around how we can work together, collaborate together, and come up with creative solutions.
Yeah, I mean, you also were, you worked at a family small business, from what I understand.
Did, as well. Yes. Yeah.
What did you do there?
I think that, so I grew up in Mexico, and from a very young age, my first job, well, lots of first jobs, and in terms of being able, when you work in a family business, you do a little bit of everything. We had a fruits and vegetables market, we had clothing, we had a taco stand. My first individual business was selling candy around town. I had my nice little box, and I still remember my first paycheck. I bought twin dolls. But I think it really showcased what it means to provide for your own, but also to give and engage the community, to think about what is it that our community needs and how do we engage back and forth in an economy that can benefit everyone.
And I mean, when did you did you have that Center City Little League board meeting? Was it, you said it was last night? Or
Last night,
Last
yes.
night. So to talk about, the connection here, I mean, it's not just that you've done all this work outside and then you've decided now you're going to run for city council, but you've also been involved with that and the school, with the Sustainability Academy. So talk a little bit about your engagement with those Burlington community organizations that are in the Old North End. So there will be kids that are part of families that you'll be representing their families and those kids on the council, kids that you're also making sure they can play baseball and they can have a decent school and be connected to that school.
Yes,
so.
yes. And I think that, I think high level of what are the things that are really impacting our society. There's racism, there's discrimination. And then there's also the day-to-day, like how do we send our children to school? You mentioned like crossing the street. And so that was something that was very important to me, how to make sure that within our neighborhood, we're able to support our children. You mentioned Center City Little League, which I serve on the board. Really, it was created so that every child in our community can access a park, can access learning how to play a sport, learning to be in a team and in a community. And it's just such a beautiful organization to think about the ways that we can bring our community together. And one of the only green spaces where our children can really play and grow in our city.
Well, it warms my heart because not only did my kids play at the Center City Little League at Roosevelt Park, which is right a block and a half from my house, but I coached for 12 or 13 years, and my wife was the president of the board for a couple of years, and we spent a lot of time. And then I've been umpiring. This was the first year that I haven't umpired a number of games with Stu McGowan in a really long time, just because life got the better of me. So it really warms my heart to have people take over, because it is not easy to sustain institutions at a community level for as long as we have. And before I turn to you, Carter, I want to say, Merrick, good luck there in the at the NPA. We'll see you tomorrow at a meeting. We'll see you on Sunday at a meeting. We'll see you on Monday at a meeting. And that just is because, and it's good that I get to fit this in. I've been really trying to keep my spirits up in these dark times. And the other day, when it was Dr. King's birthday, actual birthday, I called up the song, it's called Ella's Song, if you've never heard it. And it's, "We who believe in freedom shall not rest. We who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes." Bad singing, sorry all, but this is what we have to do now. So go, don't rest yet. Go be safe there.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. You are one of us. Carter.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Nice to have you. And tell us about your service on the council and the stuff that is really it has excited you and that you feel that you've done good stuff.
Yeah. No, I had a few goals, both sort of personal, internal, but also commitments I made when I ran for office 2 years ago. And part of that was engaging constituents, making sure that I'm being responsive, making sure that I'm informing people on a regular basis, really focusing on just the basic constituent services piece. I wanted to get, we need a lot more money for affordable housing, but a personal goal I had was I need to get any amount of money toward the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and grow that.
Not $10. Something more than 10
Not $10,
bucks.
tens of thousands of dollars at least, at a minimum, is sort of what I wanted to get through in my first term. And then also wanted to work on making sure that we are having a serious conversation and are really focused, laser focused on tax fairness and reforming how we fund our city services, making sure that working and middle class folks are paying less and folks who can afford it can pay a little bit more. And then also just going back to sort of engaging constituents, how do we expand direct democracy in our city? I'm a big proponent of expanding participation, using the MPAs as not only a way to get feedback, but also, if we want folks to engage at the MPA level, radical idea, what if we give them a little power and treat them as the fourth branch of government that they are? But all that said, those are some of the goals that I had, and I feel like I've achieved every single one of those in many ways. And there's things like Merrick was talking about earlier that we have pushed for, we failed, but at our core, we are moving the city in a direction that we have not seen in a decade, and that is that we are centering the economic needs of working and middle class folks in this community above all else. And that is our first priority when we talk about housing, when we talk about taxes, when we talk about economic development, and that is a much different approach, outlook, and value set that we've seen from the previous administration, and now we have, it's just really exciting to me that that's the case.
Having served I take that back too, because I was a city attorney under Moreau's administration for a long time, and I tried to be very, very professional and do my job well, but it is quite different to work under a neoliberal trickle-down approach. I know that I would get into a fight with Moreau, but I got into a lot of fights with him. Than to have one that is centered on trying to have economic and social justice at the core and to push systemic changes. So talk to us a little bit about the type of those changes on those fronts.
Yeah, so on the affordable housing front, I introduced a resolution. It was one of the first that I introduced, and asked CEDO, then Director Pine, to work with me and other city staff to work with CDNR, the CDNR committee of the City Council.
Community and Neighborhood Development.
Well, I'm going to mess it up now.
CD, Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. I should know it by now. But
that's okay.
Yeah, we basically said how, in this challenging time, without doing it in a regressive way, without doing it in a way that asks working and middle class folks to pay more, how do we raise more money for affordable housing? Because back in the day, as you know and many folks know, Bernie's administration, progressives, created the Housing Trust Fund. And so it's a dedicated fund that we use to support the creation and maintenance of permanently affordable units, not private sector units, but units like the Champlain Housing Trust or Burlington Housing Authority, Cathedral Square, et cetera. And it's been really, really key to building out permanently affordable housing in the city. So put a resolution in saying, how do we find that money? Where's that money in this tight budget environment? I don't want to raise taxes on folks who can't afford it. And we found, after some process, a report back, conversation at the CDNR and the council level and with the mayor's administration, starting in FY27, an additional $180,000 a year to invest into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So that's not enough. We need much more money, but was a tangible step in putting more money toward affordable housing investment.
And that goes to help either contribute to the building of affordable units, and those can be home ownership that's under the limited equity programs, or it could be the rental housing, and there's a range of affordability targets for the very low income, which takes an awful lot of money and is something that this nation needs to step up on and take up. We're not really seeing that, but and then other ones for more in the solid working class, people who are working but still need some help because the housing market is insanely expensive and, you know, tight, and therefore prone to rent gouging and speculation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, another piece that I feel like it sounds a little bit corny to say because I hear it from every politician, but I really understand it now, having gone through it, is that constituent service. You talked about the stop signs just a little while ago, and you know, I've been calling through folks. You know, I'm running for re-election. You were supportive last time. Can you support me? What are your issues? What do you think I'm doing well on? Not doing well on? And I had three different stories, 3 different stop sign stories.
Yeah.
One was one street, someone had a pothole that was just persistent, and worked with DPW to address that issue at a faster rate than we had been seeing. There was a controversy in the old East End about speed bumps, and folks over in that neck of the woods on Grove Street will know what I'm talking about, but had an opportunity to pull city staff, literally go get a coffee on a resident's front porch and spend an hour and a half talking through how do we come to a resolution on this. And then also we had a landlord dispute where, you know, a landlord had replaced a broken dryer and washer for, I think it was 7 or 8 months. Through various phone calls and through you know, a little bit of time, we got that dryer fixed, and it's just that sort of like tangible, direct constituent services stuff. I think is the most satisfying, or the things that I'm sort of most proud of, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the work we've got around the unaccepted streets issue, which I think, you know, most councilors got lots of pushback from their constituents, and you know, people stepped up. I know that I was and have been active in that, and that made a big difference. You know, even good administrations, and I think that we have a good administration under Mayor Emma, but they, you know, people just sort of go with a project, with an idea, and you know, we are the check, we are the representative, and sometimes we have to do things that we might not even agree with, or may just amplify voices that if it were us, we may not be engaged in, but we do, and you know, that's really important. So that was a good example, and it does. At the end of the day, you get to look back and go, yeah, you know, that's my pothole. I fixed that pothole. That's my speed bump when I go over that, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me actually. It was us. You know, Bernie says that it's not me, it's us. And it's really true. You were about to say something.
Yeah, I think that you all sharing that story, maybe, you know, when I was making my decision to run for city council, somebody said to me, you know, you're not going to solve the issues of our community, or you're not going to solve discrimination in our city. You're going to be working on parking permits and potholes, right? And my answer, and I remember this conversation specifically because I said to them, well, what I care about is making sure that everyone's potholes are able to be taken care of, that the voices of every individual are taken care of. And I think that is where I think is important when we think about our role, is how we approach the work that we do with the lens of social justice, with the lens of equity, that yes, it's going to take much more of a collective to be able to address some of our larger social issues, but it's about how do we engage equitably across our city is something that's important.
Yeah, I mean, all of those issues are manifestations of a bigger society, bigger culture, policies and programs, spending decisions, all of them. And sometimes, as Merrick was saying, you know, we've got to speak up even when we lose, because otherwise the voices are totally silent. Right? If nobody is saying that this is wrong, then it just becomes accepted. And there are some things that are just unacceptable. So now, Carter, you've got a website, right?
Yes, carterforbtv.com, and maybe it'll come up on the screen here for
There you
folks.
go. Good job, Kevin.
But folks can go here. I've used this both sort of outside the campaign cycle to give updates as well. So there's updates from Carter there. But yeah, the homepage is talking about some of why I'm running for a second term, why I decided to do it, and what we're hoping to achieve. But then also there's a tab there, Progress on Affordability, and that really details all the different ways that the administration, city government, the council has made life even just a little bit more affordable on a variety of aspects, in a variety of ways. And you know, one of those being our public-owned utilities, BED, and our water department changed systems around so they can auto-enroll residents who qualify for discounts on their utility bills. And so even something as simple as an opt-in system versus an opt-out system is transformative for a whole lot of folks, because it can be just exhausting trying to a program exists and then you have to file 15 forms to figure it out, or you got to do this research, or you got to know that it exists. And so if we can just better deliver services to folks who need it, or better deliver a financial break to those who need it, that kind of stuff where government's working well really excites me. Yeah.
I mean, those are public utilities, and they work under a basic governmental system and orientation that says that we take care of working people, that it's not just a business that's going to maximize revenues. And so we've got these programs. You know, the nation is seeing this tremendous problem with the increase in electric bills. And we have our issues with the electric department. We can chat about them perhaps. But you know, at the end of the day, that is a municipal company that is dedicated to making sure that rates are affordable, where people are not making shareholder profits. That money is going back into the system, and the jobs that are there are good union jobs, and it just makes a big difference to do that. Laura, you've got a website too, which we didn't see. Maybe we can get that pulled up.
So
There
it's
we go. Oh, look at that. A family.
LauraForBurlington.com, and the front page you'll learn more about the different issues, and here you can learn a little bit more about myself.
Okay, that's great. Let's go back to you, Laura, and have you chat a little bit about what you want to do.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I mentioned earlier, a lot of my work has been thinking about, on the other side, like how do you take policy and implement it and change the practices, ingrained practices that sometimes we have because of our policies. And I've been very, you know, for many years thinking about, well, what would it look like to be part of thinking about not only developing policy, but reinforcing some of the policies that we have and set in place. And so I think that definitely housing affordability is, I know, top of everyone's mind, including myself or my own family and my own community. And so I'm very much thinking about what are the creative ways that we can continue to explore for our city. The other area that I'm really interested in continuing to explore is just like our community safety and our community health. And I say those two things together because I think that our health, our well-being is so connected to how safe we feel and our public safety. And so I take this lens of wellness along with safety, because I think it's so important to think about the implications that community safety has in our day-to-day lives. And so I'd love to continue to explore what that looks like for our city. What are the creative ways that we can continue to explore? I mean, we're not the only city that is experiencing these issues, and we could learn from others, and we could also take risk and be a model for other cities. We are a small enough city where we can pilot new programs, where we can test things, and I'm excited to sort of join the team to continue to explore what that may look like.
So do you have ideas that you are most interested in exploring, or
Yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Yes, I mean, I think that a couple of things. I think the Overdose Prevention Center has been definitely top of conversation for many folks, and I've been following along sort of like the process of multi-year process of what that looks like. I think that the way that we can approach bringing that type of center into our community is, to me, a very innovative way of thinking, and a way that we can learn, so that our community can both see the benefits but also learn from what that could look like and what a sustainable service and space can look like for those who need that space.
Yeah, I mean, just on the OPC, as it's called, one of the things which is really amazing is, to me, there is a number of folks who have expressed opposition who have a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is. You know, they say, we don't need to, let them shoot up. We need to get them off of drugs, right? And in essence, that is exactly what the OPC is. It's a place to provide them with safety for where they're at, and then all these other services. The lingo is wraparound services, but what it is all the different people who are going to help a person who has substance use disorder be able to connect with other folks, with health providers, with the mental health folks, if there are other pressures that are there, that whole situation, and to do it in a regular way, not just a spasmodic way, and not just in a way that says, okay, take the bus and go to the appointment down at the Howard Center, and good luck to you, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we had Ed Baker and Bella Fern here last month to really delve into that program, and it really is amazing how, if you read in the best light the arguments against it, it's really an argument for it, right? Because the alternative is to just throw people in jail, and there's enough people who go to jail, even if they get clean, and then they OD, relatively soon afterwards. Corey Monteith is this guy. I'll call him a kid because he was, who was an actor on Glee, who had a heroin problem and kicked it for a while, and then got out, and in an instant, a blink of an eye, was gone, right? We need these systems, right? So I'm glad that you bring that up, because this is going to be a serious conversation that we will continue to have, not just about whether to have that, but also about where. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is our ability to fund and staff the services that are absolutely required to do that, and the commitment to do that. I have confidence that the people who are pushing this and working on it, Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, are the right people to do that. So I'm pretty pleased with that, and pretty unpleased with what seems to be a just say no. I have to tell you, and I just want to, Carter knows this, but you're going to have to steel yourself, right, to a theory of government that somehow says we can't, and therefore we don't. And there are all sorts of excuses, but at the end of the day, it becomes just a way for a system to just grind on, in my standpoint. And I'm not interested in being part, I'm not, I was about to say, I'm not interested in being part of a government that just, just grinds on, right? I am interested in being part of a government to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we have these alternatives. So, that's going to be a challenge. I'm going to flip back to Carter, and then we'll go back to you for another idea. So you were talking about tax fairness. We talked about, you were talking about housing. Talk about tax fairness.
Yeah, we had a engaged council meeting, this past council meeting. We progressives in the mayor's office were trying to put an advisory question on the ballot. This is one of the first proposals that have come out of the mayor's tax advisory working group. And for folks who don't know, that group was put together on day one by the mayor pretty quickly as she took office and the transition in government happened. And it's a group of, both progressives, Democrats, independents, folks who have subject matter expertise, folks like, Public Assets Institute.
Stephanie Wu, yeah.
Exactly, is a great example, was represented in that. And then residents as well. So we had a really holistic perspective, a number of holistic perspectives at the table. And we're just really smart folks, right? And so they released a report after about a year or so, of work. And the top suggestion, the thing that they could agree on the most, was a homestead exemption. And that's a technical sounding term, but basically what it is if we as city government tax you at $200,000 for your condo, we are going to go across the board for everybody's property and say we're only going to tax you $170,000, so a $30,000 homestead exemption. And what that does, because it is revenue neutral, and you do out the math, and again, folks smarter than me have done this math, and folks can dive deeper on the city website. But 2/3 of all properties would see a reduction in their property tax bill by at least $150.
The municipal part.
The municipal part of your
Yep.
property tax bill. Yep, because that's what we have control over here at the council level. So that's transformative. It's the first time I've been involved in Burlington politics in one way or another for a decade now, and this is the first time that I have seen city leadership, the council, come close, because the vote unfortunately failed along party lines here. But actually discussing and focusing on, laser focused on, how do we reduce the tax burden on working and middle class folks?
Yeah.
That discussion just hasn't happened prior to this mayor and prior to this iteration of the council. So we wanted to get an advisory question on the ballot to say, here's the idea. Community, do you support this? Do you not support this? But we unfortunately did not have the votes to get it through, and I was honestly surprised by that. But the work is not over, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the arguments, which I find ironic, is that they said, well, there just hasn't been enough discussion, enough vetting of it, as if that's not what you do in a campaign, if it's not what you do in an election. It, to me, is nonsensical. It's also...
And I just got to say, too, on the vetting piece, because this one was frustrating for me. Back in 2021, and I'm hopefully not going on a tangent, Progressive Councilor Joe McGee, who then worked in the mayor's office, is a wonderful human being, known for years, was trying to push forward tax fairness reforms.
Yep.
And one of the things that he helped facilitate was this study done by, it's called the Urban 3 study. And essentially what it said is lower value homes get overassessed compared to their market value, where higher value homes get underassessed. And so basically one of the leading groups in the country did this study, and one of their top recommendations, what do you know, was a homestead exemption.
Yeah.
So we've literally been talking about this policy idea since 2021, multiple rounds of experts.
And that was under a Democratic
Under
administration,
Moreau.
under Moreau's
Yeah.
administration.
Exactly.
And he was pretty enthusiastic about the report. And the Dems, with the exception of 1 year where we had like 6-6, right, had a majority. Right? I mean, to me, it's kind of stunning that you would say you haven't had enough time to do something when you haven't taken the opportunity to do it. I mean, this has been in the Charter Change Committee for 2 months, where the Democrats not only chair it, but have a majority. on that.
Yeah.
And then to say, oh, it needs more time, but without having promoted any of that conversation, and even in the defeat of it, didn't say, we're going to work with you, Mayor, we're going to work with you, progressives, to have a vigorous community conversation where we can actually, if there are issues with this, we'll be able to come up with identifying those real issues and then be able to address them. Instead, to me, it was a lame excuse, and at the best was a belief that the perfect has to exist before you get to do anything. That is a recipe for doing nothing.
Yeah, and and to Laura's earlier point, it is not good enough to, and your earlier point, to just say no to every single thing that's proposed. And I have a strong feeling that that's what we've seen from the majority on the council, unfortunately, in many different instances. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or the mayor's perfect or any politician. No politician is going to save us and solve these issues alone. It really is about us as a community. But we've got to put ideas on the table. We've got to start moving forward, having these conversations, and not just staying stagnant in the status quo, because that's not working. It's much too expensive.
We have not done that type of work, that really collaborative work on taxes. We have done a better job on the climate change work. I know that Merrick was talking about the building emissions reduction work and the benchmarking, and that was through the 2 committee of which we're both part of. It's actually a 2-2 committee, so nobody can prevail. I have found that Mark Barlow to be very reasonable in his approach, and we've been able to actually get some things, not as far as I proposed, but then our ability to say, okay, let us move and get something. And Laura, you just have to be willing to fight, and you have to be willing.
Aren't you excited to
compromise? I mean, it's not. But it's not just that. It's also then being able to reach people where they're at, where we can all get that it still is going to be consistent with our values. There's going to be time that there just is going to be space between us, and we have to accept that as part of politics in the best and the worst of times. It's just what it is. But yeah, we definitely, that is something that, congenitally, is just part of this work to be able to do. Okay, so we talked a little bit about taxes from you, Carter.
Can I just add to,
Totally.
as you all were talking, one thing that just really came to me is whenever doing justice work, we always, and this just has been my experience, and I know of many others, we always have to come with it even more. And by that I mean we're expected to bring more research, more evidence, more expertise than any other work. And so when it comes to equity work, like that, to me, it's not surprising, right? Like and then not to mention who brings it to the table. Like, I don't take for granted that the identities of the individuals who bring things to the table have to just do it a little bit. And I'm speaking that from lived experiences and from years, seeing decades of how that works. And so I'm not surprised by it, but I think it's a reminder of we just gotta come with it next time and keep pushing with it and not being discouraged by it, because we have expertise, we have intelligent people in our community who have been doing this work for a long time that we can learn from. And that goes for tax fairness, but also many other issues that we have on the table.
Yeah, that whole concept of the moral arc of the universe bending towards justice, but it's a long arc that Dr. King had. It does not happen if we do not bend it, right? So, so we talked a little bit about the OPC and justice and safety, health and safety. Is there another thing that you have that you'd like to chat about?
I mean, I think that it goes almost without saying very much, but I think that what we're experiencing in this moment right now in terms of how our immigrant, refugee, undocumented neighbors are being treated across the country, within our cities and within our state, is something that we just can't ignore. And I think about the ways that, what is our role as a city, whether it's through housing, whether it's through schools, what is our role as a city to continue to think about how to create a welcoming environment, city for people to live, for people to work, for their children to be educated in our community. I don't know what the answers are, but I know that folks are thinking about it. Folks have been working on this, and so we saw this just this week, the conversations around like how can our airport be a space where we can create some limitations. There's the impartial policing resolution that was passed a number of years ago. How do we continue to reinforce that for our community and remind folks of the ways that we can create this environment for those who live in our city, and for our community? How do we send that message beyond our city as well?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You know, we have always had to do this work, but we have never until now had to deal with a secret police force, a Gestapo. I mean, it sickens me as a Jew who, you know, does not have any family in Europe anymore. Everybody who could got over well before, but there were a bunch of people who were left behind that we lost track of, that my grandfather lost track of. So that whole side of his family gone to a Nazi, extermination campaign, and the picking up of people. You cannot understate, you can't overstate, I think is what I mean to say, the danger that Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem and the rest of them are posing. And I think that we do need to have some more serious conversation that is really about the role that we can legally and peacefully play to make sure that the rule of law, that due process, that the Constitution, and the language that undergirds it is upheld. They called Ms. Good or Mrs. Good, a terrorist, right? They have so perverted language that it's meaningless when you hear it. But we have to, I think, provide a systemic way of being able to protect people, just like we have to be able to then do the work of welcome. I mean, I'm a Unitarian Universalist as well as a Jew, and we have a saying at the UU about having radical welcoming, of really, making people feel that they belong, that they're part. And so that work, that is actually why we're having this charter change to embed the racial equity, inclusion, and belonging office in our city charter, so that work is just part of the foundation of who we are as a city, because we have this incredibly diverse community. You see that at the Little League, you see this in the community that park is in. It's in my neighborhood, where I've lived for 40 years, and it's a beautiful and wonderful thing. Of course.
I just want to put a plug for what you said in terms of the REIB, because that is going to be in our ballots, and there are different ways for folks to continue to learn about what that's going to look like, but I just want folks to think about the future. Like, let's not stop at the Black Lives Matter sign on your window. Like, let's not just be okay with having a flag, in front of your homes. Like, let's make this a structural component of our city. Let's think about the future and what this could look like. And so I do hope folks at home are thinking about that and how that for our future of our community.
Yeah, it's really important that we pass that. So yeah, we've got a couple of minutes, believe it or not. You know, we're down to the last 5 minutes of this show. Politicians, we can talk for a while. I know I can. Carter, you got?
No, I was going to say, you made me think of one of the things I've been reflecting on and agree with everything folks are saying with what's happening in Minneapolis is, you know, we're very comfortable, you know, as Americans from, I don't know, going back decades now, it seems, and just treat governance and democracy, we don't always treat it as the participatory activity that it is. And so I think one of the biggest reflections I've had is just, we need people to participate. Like, it's okay to have differences of opinion, it's okay, whatever it might be, but holding that, the importance of free speech and political expression, and, you know, it is about immigration, but it's even more. I mean, this is a campaign of intimidation, and I think it's gone beyond just a disagreement on immigration policy and to a place where American citizens, you have masked agents walking streets by the thousands, just throwing people in vans, just assaulting people. And
5-year-old picked up yesterday.
a 6-month-old was tear gassed. A 17-year-old was picked up, beat up, and then dropped back off. There's so many stories, and so I think you mentioned a number of things that we're doing, both with the charter change, which is really important, and I'm glad we highlighted that. You know, we did a free speech resolution when the federal government. So these issues, they are federal, and it's not the immediate pothole, stop sign work of city government, and that is important. But we've got to be able to sort of walk and chew gum at the same time, and also take every opportunity to both build our own resiliency as a community, and find opportunities to push back with allies all across the country against this stuff, because it is really concerning. And to your point earlier, not to rant, and then I'll stop talking, since having kids, one of the biggest things that has changed with my political involvement is, what am I leaving them, and what are they going to inherit? And I want them to inherit a functioning democracy and an affordable community, a livable community, you know, a world that's not melting because of climate change, et cetera, which isn't a big ask. These are not, it seems far away, but those are reasonable things to expect in this life. So I'll stop ranting there.
We who believe in justice shall not rest. Laura?
Well, thank you so much for just having me. I am just excited to be in this journey with you all and with our community. And so thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Well, it is my pleasure. This is something that I have been in and around for a really long time. And so I've actually seen a bit of that moral arc. And it's undulating, it goes up and down, you know, sort of like potholes in our city, right? And so we make progress. You know, Bernie's, the housing crisis, and all of these reforms that we had, the land trust, the housing trust fund, inclusionary zoning, all of those things were passed in the wake of a housing crisis. We never actually got out of it, but we did something to make it less bad, and more, I think, as important, not more importantly, but as important, is that we pointed to a different way of doing things, right? You know, there's this concept in housing that, you know, it's a commodity, bought and sold, and we raise a question about whether that actually should be, you know, and so on taxes, we'll have a fight this coming budget season about alternatives to the property tax because it's regressive. And so we'll be having a fight about the gross receipts tax, and we'll come back on and have conversations about that because that's an alternative that raises money from people who with the discretionary income to go out and have meals. And that was something that Bernie it created because we had this financial crisis in the middle 80s under Reagan. So there's going to be a lot for us to be working on, and I'm really looking forward to having you guys and be with me and me with you as we do that. So I think that we're at time, and I just want to thank everybody. There's Laura's website, her about page on there, and there is mine, and I'm still reworking it. There's Merrick's, and I think we got Carter's coming up.
I think mine was.
Or your
there, I
Carter's
went
was
through.
first.
Yeah.
And there we go. I thank you, Kevin, in the booth, and I thank you. And we will see you next month for Burlington Progressives TV. Have a great night.